For joining us. My name is Helen Liu, and I'm the Programming and Partnerships Manager at Carey Library. I am assisted today by my colleague, Matt Schumann, and Susan Eastland will be joining us shortly. I want to take a moment to thank the Carey Library Foundation. Their support enables us to bring programs like today's event to you. Brian from Maxima Book Center is here in the event that if you would like to purchase a book. I was happy to sign a copy as well at the end of the program. Tonight, we are so excited to welcome Elle Simone Scott. Elle is a food styling guru and a trailblazer who manages to make food both stunning and approachable. She shapes the visual aesthetic for the Cook's Country brand. And her work appears across America's Test Kitchen media platforms. Elle is an on-screen test cook for America's Test Kitchen and is a star of a new show currently in production, Entertaining with Elle, which showcases her skills as a cook, a teacher, and a stylist, and will premiere this year. Elle provided food styling and expert advice for boards to stylish spreads for casual entertainment. A best-selling, highly regarded cookbook released last April. She is currently the executive editor at America's Test Kitchen. Elle holds a Bachelor of Science in Social Work and a master's degree in food entertainment. Hello, Elle. We are so excited to welcome you to Carey Library. Before we invite Elle to demonstrate how to create a magnificent board, we're going to get to know her a little better. So we have some questions to ask her. Feel free to raise your hands if you have any questions, and we can bring over a microphone. Elle will also answer questions while she's creating the board later tonight. So Elle.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're so happy that you're here. So we want to start at the beginning. Your background was in social work. So how did you transition into the culinary industry?
Well, there's a pretty in-depth story that has to do with the 2008 recession. But ultimately, I don't think I ever really left hospitality, right? Like my very first job at 14, 15, maybe I was 15, I think. I was a server at a restaurant chain that is very specific to the Midwest called Olga's Kitchen. And it's kind of Greek-ish, right? Greek-American, if you will. It's still there. It's still one of my favorite restaurants. And I don't think I ever left. As I think of it, even as a social worker, I was always like moonlighting hostess or, because I just love food and eating. And if I could do it for free or cheap, I want to do that, right? So I never left it. And when the recession hit and the agencies in Michigan were losing their funding, I always had the restaurant to fall back on, right? I just did that, and while I wasn't fully trained, I had enough visual experience helping out in the kitchen at restaurants that I kind of really just easily transitioned into prep cook, level 1 cook. And, and it sustained me, and from there I was just well, I think I love this, obviously. So I'm just going to keep going, deeper and deeper. And it went from being a prep cook and a hostess to working on a cruise ship, leaving the cruise ship, then going to culinary school while also being and still working in social work in New York. And so it was kind of out of necessity, right? I needed a job, I needed to continue working, and hospitality always had their doors open for me.
Yes. So what was the demographics like in the culinary industry when you first started? Did you have a mentor to guide you? Did you encounter any barriers to, moving into the different positions that you have?
Well, when I first started, it tended to look like more Spanish-speaking individuals in the kitchen, right, from various regions, right? Then there were men, and I'm from Detroit, right? So it was predominantly Black men working the line, cooking the food, slightly older Black men who were managing the establishments, and then there were women, of all ages and shapes and sizes working in front of the house. So hardly any women working in the back of the house, maybe with the exception of prep, the prep cooks. But very few women, right? And immediately that was a barrier for me, right? Because as soon as I had become a prep cook, the one opportunity that I got to work the line was because someone was sick and they were short, right? And the guys would let me cook like family meal, if you will, right? Like I could cook the like snacks for everybody, but me cooking on the line was just not even heard of, right? And so when they needed someone to fill that spot, they were like, oh, look, let's let Elle do it. She can do it. It's just like one day we can hold her hand through it, figure it out. And the manager was like, I don't know about that. I ended up doing it anyway, and it worked out just fine. But like immediately having to get permission, right? Like with no regards, never having even been asked, how much experience I had. So immediately just being a woman in the kitchen became the very first barrier. And along the way, continued, to be a barrier in large scale kitchen settings, right? Not so much in culinary media. Culinary media is almost all women, but they're mostly white women, right? So like very few women of color in this field, at that time, like in the early 2000s. I mean, maybe even so now, that might still be pretty true now, but even less so then, right? So there was always something about that, being a woman in this industry, that I think will always kind of be like an issue.
Definitely. And so I wanted to come back to the mentor part of it, because it always seems like when you're entering some type of industry that you don't have a lot of experience in, or you're looking to move up, that it's always nice to have someone to help guide you. And did you have someone like that?
It is true. I didn't get my first mentor until I left that first restaurant to go to the cruise ship. When I was on the cruise ship, there were a lot of male chefs, executive chefs. In fact, I think in my 3 years working on the cruise ship, I only had one woman executive chef. And the sous chefs were, like younger males, Black, white, everything across the board, Filipino. And those guys actually became my mentors. Like they made the kitchen very safe for me. Fortunately, I didn't have that, like the very typical toxic kitchen experience, like I've never experienced sexual harassment in the kitchen. I got the opportunity to work in a very safe space. I mean, and it could be because, on a cruise ship it's very isolated. And so like anything that happens is far more obvious than in a restaurant, right? So, but nonetheless, those guys became my mentors. It was them that encouraged me to go to culinary school. They're like, hey, when you get off this ship, you should go to school. You have like a natural gift, but you'll be much more employable if you go to school. And so a few of those guys are still my mentors to this day. I definitely credit all the things that I knew before going to culinary school to them, and also just like how to carry yourself in a kitchen. Like I never was yelled at, not by them anyway, but just how to be a leader in the kitchen. They did teach me that.
I feel like if you worked on a cruise ship, you can pretty much do anything.
It's true. It's true. It's kind of like the army of the culinary world. Like if you've been in the army, anyone will hire you. If you worked on a cruise ship, anyone will hire you because they know you can work 15 hours a day, even if the ship is rocking. Yeah.
Well, I love hearing stories about strong women like yourself, and you've certainly faced your share of adversity. Can you talk about some of the moments and how you navigated those challenges in your life?
Sure. I definitely credit how I manage difficult situations, to my mom. Like she always raised me she'd always say, don't take other people's crap. Not in that way. You know what crap is, right? But you don't have to take it. Yeah, my mom is here, she's in the back. And she always raised me, let's put my mom up. I know she looks like my sister, it's a little deceiving, but that was a promise she gave her to me. But she always told me, you don't have to take other people's crap, and so I feel like as I navigated difficult workspaces, like if there was anything that made me feel slightly uncomfortable, I'd be like, I don't have to take that. That is, there's not enough money in the world, there's not, enough opportunities in the world for me to be treated any kind of way. Like my family doesn't treat me that way, my friends don't treat me that way, I'm definitely not gonna take it from a job. And so you know, like I think one of the times I was working for Union Square Hospitality Group, which is Danny Myers in New York. And Danny Myers at that time was known for like, you know, hiring a lot of women. Like he has very good practices, you know, like as a company overall. But you know, when it starts to get micro, things kind of go on the radar, right? Like there's 17 companies under Union Square, right? And so I was working a production kitchen. The sous chef that we had, the executive sous chef that we had left. And he was a great friend. He taught me everything I knew about that station and how to manage the people who worked there. And so as they were looking to hire someone for the position, of course, I know all the things. Of course, I feel like I should apply and be considered. Well, they did not want to consider me, but they wanted me to train the person who would be considered. And I told them I'm not doing it. You know, like if I'm good enough to train, I'm good enough to hire, right? And so I didn't do it. And I told the guy, I'm like, hey, you know, like this is not personal. Like you're a great guy, but you're gonna have to figure it out on your own. And he understood that, you know. But after he got trained, I mean, I left shortly thereafter, you know, because I had also started interning at the Food Network and realizing that culinary media was actually what I wanted to do. Like I don't care about providing chicken wings for City Field. I don't care about that. It was fun and I learned a lot, you know, but that's not. So anyway, just not taking crap off people, right? Like not taking mistreatment and just, there are better opportunities, I'm sure. So that's really been the key to me getting over adversity, saying peace.
Right, definitely. And, you know, certainly having to start over in your career when the recession hit, that was probably, you know, testing times for you.
It really was. I was living like a college student all over again. It was very trying. I was working full time, going to school full time. I was like, at the time I was running a women's shelter and I would work from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. and it was a relief only position. So basically relief only means if the person who's supposed to come after you doesn't come, you have to work a double no matter what. And so I would work from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. Hopefully the person would come after me. If she didn't, I would have to work from 1 to 8 a.m. And then I'll have to beg somebody else in the morning staff to come early because I had class at 8:30. And I'd be in class from 8:30 to 1 p.m. And then I would leave school, come to the shelter, sleep in the basement. You know, in New York, what that means. You know, that means I would take a nap in the basement and then I'll wake up and start work at 4:30 p.m. So, right. So sometimes that would happen. If the person didn't come, that could happen a couple of times a week. So I was often running on very little sleep. You know, but it was, I don't know, it was something about once I realized what I really wanted to do, which is kind of a gem in life, right? Like a lot of us do things that our families tell us we should do, or tradition tells us that we should do. To have an opportunity to just choose for yourself what you really want and realize that choice is actually in alignment with who you are as a person. You don't want to give that up. Like you'll do anything to do it, right? And so I'm glad I didn't give up because I wouldn't be where I am now. But like it was, you know, living in New York City, I was mostly a freelancer, you know, I learned how to hustle. I learned how to, what I call now, eat out of my freezer, you know, like you buy things, you put in the freezer. I eat out of the fridge till the food is gone. Only then will I go and buy more food, you know, but like, it just taught me like overall, I think my takeaway from those times of adversity is that I try to take as many life lessons away from it as possible, like survival skills, you know, being able to sacrifice, going without, but also treating yourself when you can, you know, like being resourceful. This book, if you, the intro, my intro letter to this book talks about how I even came to make boards, right? Because I would work on food styling shoots and I would bring home all the leftover food and sometimes it was not cohesive, right? And so I would just throw it on the board and be like, come over, cards, we're gonna eat steak tips and Brussels sprout fries, you know? And so that was, you know, learning how to survive and still, you know, have a social life and, you know, it just, I just tried to take away from it, like, if you don't come out of the bad times with some lessons, then you're probably going to repeat it, right? And I did not want to repeat it.
Definitely.
Do not.
And then in 2016, you were diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Yes, the hurdle of all hurdles. It's still a hurdle, actually. I was new here. Like, I had just moved here in April of 2016, and then I had been having some physical signs of something being wrong and being misdiagnosed a couple of times in New York. But when I got here, I was like, okay, I'm settled. I have good health insurance. Let me see what's going on. And you know, to find out like something that seemed so small was really actually something quite big was quite devastating. I didn't know anyone here except my coworkers who fortunately, you know, like picked up the slack for me, right? Like my family came, they fed us, my mom came, they took us to our treatments, they pick us up, they drop us off, they make sure we have food every week. Like they just took really, really good care of me, and allowed me to work, right? And I worked, I don't think I've ever stopped working unless I had a surgery. Like I've always worked in my treatments, and it's been hard, you know, like it's still hard. I live with cancer chronically now, you know. I call myself a cancer driver. I made that up, by the way. So if you see it, I said it. You know, it's just a person who lives with it, like people live with diabetes or high blood pressure, right? You take medication and then you live your life, right? But there are times where I'm like, I'm tired, I don't want to do it. You know, probably like 2 weeks ago, maybe Tuesday, I don't know, you know. But it's a huge hurdle, and I can't do all the things. It's kind of aging me a little faster, right? Like my body definitely feels, I'm not even gonna put a number on it, right? Because let's just say I move slow. How many of you move slow out here? You move slow? I move slow, you know? And so I have to consider that, you know, where I used to be able to just make a decision to do something, go and do it. Like now I have to be like body first, you know, like how does my body feel? How will this make me feel in the long run, you know? So yeah, it's true.
Does it change the way that you approach eating and food?
Yes and no. I told you I was going to be honest about this when you asked me. I pretty much eat everything I ate before. I was never like a terrible eater, right? And I told Helen I was going to let you all know that cancer is not a result of when you eat or don't eat, right? There are people who live like what we would consider like perfectly healthy lives, like vegans who run every day, and those people can get cancer, right? Like cancer is it's gene mutation. It has nothing to do with what you eat, right? So while I am more aware of trying to eat more organically, right? Like I'm more aware of the things that I feel like we should all be being aware of, whether you have health issues or not, like genetically modified organisms, right? Like we should, you know, try to eat organic when you can, you know, just know where your food comes from. We're in Massachusetts. There's no reason for eating crazy foods. Like it's farm after farm after farm after farm. Everything you eat can come from a farm, right? So I still eat cupcakes and French fries. You know, I do still eat all these things, but I never eat bad, you know. I try to be aware. I've always been a conscious eater. How much is that's probably the question we should keep asking. How much do you eat? I eat a lot.
Thank you. And I was kind enough to bring some information cards that you are welcome to take on ovarian cancer. If you have any questions for her later, she's happy to answer those as well.
Yes.
But now I wanted to talk about working at the Marcus Test Kitchen. So that must be so exciting. Can you tell us how you got started? Well, you said you got an internship, but that must have been like difficult to get. And then what positions have you held along the way?
I actually answered a blind audition for America's Test Kitchen. There was kind of like a change of guards going on there. If you have watched the show in the past, you know, that the cast member who used to be there is no longer there. I was not there during this transition, but I was fortunate enough to get kind of caught up in the restructuring of the company after that. And a friend sent me like a Facebook post, and I was like, okay, I'm looking for work. I was freelancing in New York. I'm always looking for work. And I responded, and a casting agent reached out, and they couldn't, I think they were going through this departure, so they couldn't tell me who I was auditioning for. So they were like, it's food and it's science. I'm like, yeah, that's vague. And so anyway, I did these audition videos, and they liked my videos and they invited me to come down. I mean, it was so vague, it said New England, and I'm like, that could be anywhere, right? And so they were like, yeah, we would like you to come to Boston and audition in real time. And I did, and the producer on the phone, oh, I think she was our director at the time. She was like, have you ever heard of America's Test Kitchen? And I was like, yeah, a little bit. And she's like, well, this is that. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, I have to call you back. Let me call my family. So I think was it a group text? That's in a group text that my cousins, my aunt, my mom, and I was like, I think I got this opportunity. And they were like, you gotta go, get off this phone and call that lady back and tell her you want that job. And interestingly enough, I was ready to phase out of New York. You know, like I was tired of freelancing. I wanted something steady. And that was kind of what I was putting out to the universe. Like, I'm ready for something new. I want to, maybe move. I don't know if I meant the move part. I would have been okay staying in New York, but it all worked out, right? Because I came here, I had a great doctor who diagnosed my ovarian cancer issue. And I mean, I'm still good today. So it probably all was for the best. I've been a test cook there. I still am, no, I'm sorry. I'm not a test cook. I'm a test cook on TV. That's my secret, y'all. It just says I'm a test cook, I'm not. I don't develop recipes there. It's a farce, I'm sorry. But I'm the food stylist. I used to do all publications. Now I only do Cook's Country. And then I got promoted to executive editor. I think that's kind of as high as you can go. So they let me write a book. And I get to do another book soon. But yeah, I've only had 2 positions. It's interesting. My position didn't exist before I got the job. So I've had more managers than I've had positions because they don't really know where to put me. But I'm in good hands now. Jack Bishop is my manager, and he makes sure that I get to do all the fun things. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. And you're also the inclusion leader that guides the company's diversity council. That work must be rewarding.
It was. I don't do that anymore. But it was. I was very happy to do it to start the company in that direction. Right. That's the kind of work that I grew up with. Right. That's the kind of work that my mom has done. And so I know the language, I know the process, but that's not my passion, right? Being a creative is my passion, but I was happy to get them on the right track, steering the proper committees, forming the proper committees, helping them to investigate things that needed to be changed in the company and spearheading like specific and significant changes that could happen immediately. So it was hard, but it was really, really good. And it taught me a lot about interpersonal relationships. Like I'm very connected to my coworkers. They're like my family, and I can't advocate for them in a way that someone who solely focuses on that work could, right? So I gave it up, but it's in good hands, and we've made so many changes. We've done so well.
But you're still doing advocating work. So as one of the more visible Black women on food television, how do you use your platform to advocate and open doors for others?
I just be kicking the doors down. I mean, that's really, I'm like, no, not enough people here. No, not enough women. We need 5 women up here, I just, what I really do is that I try to be very honest, like I don't sugarcoat things when I see it, like if I see, I was raised that if I saw something that wasn't right, I should say something. That's, that's how my family is. If it's an injustice, right? Like, it's your responsibility, like if you overlook it, then someone else will overlook it and it'll be a continuous problem, right? So I just tell them like, you know what? What's not right here? This process, we need to do X, Y, Z, and these are the reasons why, right? Like not just like the socio-political reason, but like here's the financial reason, and here's just like the right reason, like I just challenge people to do the right thing, like shamelessly, fearlessly. What you gonna do? Say no, I'm not gonna do the right thing to my faith.
But you also started an organization called She Chef.
Yeah.
That's a tongue twister, She Chef.
It is.
Can you talk a little bit about that and share some success stories?
Yeah, She Chef was founded in 2013. Because when I graduated culinary school, when I was in culinary school, there were a lot of women. But when I got into the workforce, that's like, no, like where are all the women? Where they go? And after partnering with the career services person at my school after graduating and kind of doing like some census research, we realized that a lot of women were leaving the industry before really getting their foot in the door for a variety of reasons, right? Like childcare, non-traditional work hours. Like if you work 9 to midnight, it's very, or 5 to midnight, it's difficult to get a babysitter at that time, right? And so we really just became a group of women who were trying to support each other to make sure that the others were successful. Literally, I don't know if anyone remembers meetup.com. You remember that back in the day, right? And so it was a meetup.com group. That's how we started. And it just started growing and growing. Like people were like, what is this She Chef thing? Or I need support. Can you be my mentor? Can you connect me with people? And I was myself getting really great opportunities, right? I was interning. I was freelancing at the Chew on ABC. I was doing book tours with Chef Michael Simon, Carla Hall, Daphne Oz. I was doing all these things that could be passed down to other people. And so I wanted to groom people to take these opportunities. And so I started doing that, because a lot of people don't know that culinary media is even a thing. And more importantly, they don't even know that it pays really well, And so I was like, I gotta pass this baton to somebody, like everybody doesn't have to work in a restaurant. Like I did learn over time, and because of She Chef, all the different genres of work that a culinary certification can allow you, right? So I wanted to find as many of those things, because if you can work a 9-to-5 job, you don't have to worry about a babysitter, right? Like if you could be a buyer, you could be a seller for Whole Foods. You could, just exploring all the opportunities and introducing them to the women so they knew they had options, right? So that was really what it was about. Success stories. So many. We've had some of our members have had their foods featured in Whole Foods, right? That's kind of like their mainstay in New York. Lots of, I have at least 2 former members who are chefs for NBA and NFL. Just from joining the network, right? And me sharing my network with people, like as I meet great people, I try to connect people, like I'm kind of on a little hiatus right now, but I'm still connecting like one young woman with like her internship, like I can't stop. I needed to take a break, and I took a significant break. But like if someone asked me to share, like they need help or share my network, I can't say no. I would dare not say no. That's the other way that I continue to break the glass ceiling, putting good people with other good people.
And that's such admirable work. And they're very lucky to have you.
Thanks.
So I'd like to bring the conversation back to food as we prepare to have you create that board.
Okay.
Can you define the term culinary media? You mentioned it quite a few times today.
Yeah. Culinary media as an umbrella term is anyone who works or has a part in food being presented on television, in print, I guess print and editorial are the same, or film, right? And so there maybe could be 25 different jobs under the umbrella of culinary, maybe more, you know, it could be more, but off the top of my head, I've been a culinary producer. So basically, a culinary producer is the person who's responsible for all the food components of a cooking show or a TV show that has food, right? Even if it's not a TV show. Perfect example, I have a colleague and a friend who does the food for Game of Thrones, right? Those big gothic tablescapes. And she's a food stylist like me, right? And because it's such a small department, she's also the culinary producer. It can, I mean, being the culinary producer means you could have to build out a kitchen. I did a shoot that we had a segment at a science museum and I had to build a kitchen in the back of the building. The people who film it, the people who shop for TV shows, right? Shopping for TV shows is very specific. You have to hand shop a lot of things. Imagine trying to match 3 chickens. A lot of that, like 5 oranges that look alike, right? Because you repeat the scenes over and over again. They're the runners who make sure that the set gets clean. There's a million jobs, but culinary media is anything that has to do with food in print, movies, or television. Anything. The writing, food writers. We have some food writers, maybe there's food writers here, but Boston Globe has food writers, right? That whole food section of the Boston Globe may or may not have someone who, the executive editor, culinary media, everything in America's Test Kitchen, culinary media. The food goes on the camera, it's culinary media. Food's the star, it's culinary media.
What kind of classes do you take in order to become a food stylist? Like, you know, that just seems just such a fun thing to do.
To be honest, I didn't take any classes at all. I don't know that there are any. I know that the Institute for Culinary Education in New York offers, they offer a course, but it's not like part of their curriculum. It's kind of like those professional development courses. In order to become a food stylist, I think even now you kind of have to apprentice. I apprenticed with 3 different stylists in New York. One who taught me everything, one who taught me nothing, and one who let me do all the work. Right. I think it's a good combination. It didn't seem like it back in the day, but yeah, apprenticing, and that's pretty much the way I tell people now. Like if you're interested or think you're interested in food styling or culinary media, mostly food styling, it's best to reach out to a food stylist and maybe volunteer some time or see if they need an assistant. I will not take an assistant that doesn't have a culinary background. I have a saying, I was quoted at a conference one time that I was not even at for saying this, but I think it's true. Some people argue it, but every food stylist is a chef, but not every chef is a food stylist. Every chef doesn't know how to make a plate of food look good for 3 hours. They plate the food, it goes out to the kitchen, it goes out to the dining room, it gets consumed. It's still hot. Make food look good when it's been sitting in the cold room for 3 hours, right? A food stylist can do that. But you also have to know the science of food to do that, right? I mean, chefs know the science of food, but that doesn't mean I can't plate. People think it's weird to say that. You need these fancy plates you see in the restaurants. And not only can I not do it, I don't like it. I'm like, just put the food on the plate. Give it to me. You know, these dots and shapes, and it's a form, it's a food styling, but it's not the same as what we do for meat. Yeah, it's very different. You sometimes can't eat our food. I try to make sure that anyone can eat it if they want to, but to always ask. Just so I told you, remember, just so you know, ask first.
So you have a new show coming out this year, Entertaining with Elle.
Yes.
Which showcases your skills, as I said, as a cook, a teacher, and a stylist. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, that show is inspired by the board's book, and kind of my love for entertaining and taking it like a step further, right? It's some of the boards that are featured in the book, but like how to make it real, applicable, to like real life, right? This shows you how to make one board. These are the recipes, this is how you do it. But like, how do you pair your wings board with beers? And also really, really allowing me to kind of sink my teeth into the, Massachusetts communities, right? Like, I'm big on like local, buy local, shop local, right? And so to like go to a local woman-owned brewery and get beers that match your wings, like pairing beer and wings, that is magic, right? Like, and I love talking about stuff like that, right? So the show is kind of centered around how to really make the board building a home experience and, ways to make entertaining easier or more exciting and even less stressful. Like people see boards and people get stressed out. I'm like, it does not have to be that way, right? Like it's not about perfection, right? It is for me to get you to buy it. I want you to look at this and be like, these photos are perfect, but your board doesn't have to be perfect. And so entertaining with Elle kind of like humanizes the entertainment experience, right? To put the joy back in entertaining, to get you out of the kitchen and spending time with your friends while you're entertaining. I don't know where it will be shown yet. We're pitching to networks, maybe Magnolia, maybe Freebie, I don't know. But when I know, you'll know, I'll let y'all know.
Sounds great. I look forward to watching it. So, who or what has influenced or inspired your cooking and the way you approach food and eating?
I think my food inspirations have shifted and vary, right? Like, I enjoyed cooking with my grandmother and her sisters growing up, right? I don't know that it was as much about the food as it was to just kind of like get the family business, like they were always trying to, they're problem solving, they're matriarchs, they're putting on fires. And I wanted to learn that, I want to be a part of that, but that came with learning how to pick and clean collard greens, learning how to, how to make dough for, any kind of bread. It took a lot of things. So I think first, my family is my inspiration. I always say I come from a family of good cooks. I'm not the best cook in my family. I'm just the only one who does it professionally. Some of my cousins can cook me under a table. But I think I was also inspired by the food that I grew up eating in Detroit, right? Detroit is a very diverse city, right? We have Hamtramck, that is a large Polish community. We have Greektown, so I grew up eating a lot of Greek and Mediterranean food. We have Dearborn, Michigan is the largest Middle Eastern inhabited city in the United States, right? And so there's lots of Arabic and Middle Eastern food there, and Mediterranean, so I grew up eating in a very diverse way. Like that was my first way of traveling was through the palate. So I think to this day, I still eat things like my mother would always joke since it's like, she used to always say to me, I don't know whose child you are. You eat everything, right? Like you don't leave anything on the plate. And she's a picky eater, but I'm definitely not. And so I would always be willing to try something, the server would be like, you want to try some blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, yeah. And so that's how I eat now, I think just having my palate exposed at a very young age, even in my neighborhood, when I was young, we had like fresh fruit market around the corner. We had a butcher shop in our neighborhood. I was also used to eating from the community, right? And so I'm always looking for that's why locally sourced is important. Knowing where your food comes from is so important, right? So I think now, wow, so many. I don't know. I don't even know. Like, there's so much good food. I think right now I'm inspired by barbecue. The barbecue movement. It's coming. It's on its way, y'all. Like barbecue, and just like the history of like pit mastering and underground grilling and the history of barbecue, right? Not just the actual barbecue, even though that's good. It's fun. It's mind bending, like it's so scientific, and to think about how you know, indigenous people cook in the ways in which they do it that really utilize so many natural resources, like wrapping things in leaves to cook them underground, you know, like, and not just like barbecue from the South, but like Hawaiian barbecue, you know, like, and there's so much intersectionality in cultures that cook food on open fire. It's mind-bending. And I'm really into that now. That is really what's really inspiring me. I went to a barbecue academy last spring. I took my uncles. I'm deeply into barbecuing. Learned so much. I'm into moonshine culture right now, like distilling moonshine. I don't do it, but I have a friend who's doing it. And I'm like, that sounds, you know, because the history of moonshine and prohibition and, you know, like people who gone to jail and died for moonshine, you know, but I get it, you know, the more I learn about it, the more I get it. So those are the things that are really inspiring me right now. These formerly taboo things or natural and ancient ways of cooking, you know, like I think culture and ethnicity are the new black, you know, and I love that. I love that. There's so much beauty in food diversity, and I'm glad that people are interested.
Yeah, and having the opportunity to use the boards is another way to kind of demonstrate some of the different types of food you can put together. So what inspired you to write that book or create that book?
Like I mentioned before, it was what I was asked about, right? You know, like if I wanted to write a book, and I had a couple of ideas, right? Like I'm a Black woman from the Midwest, and Black people in the Midwest eat in a very unique way. Like our food is very European Southern, right? Like there's a huge European influence coming through the Midwest, right? Germans in Wisconsin. Like I grew up eating corned beef and cabbage probably more than the average Irish person, you know, but like, you know, with my grandmother's Southern spin on it. And so I was like, I would really love to write a book about that, you know. And that is in the works at some point. But the other thing I really enjoyed was like entertaining. And the reason it became boards is because as a food professional, if you have friends that are not food professionals and they have events, they kind of sometimes expect you to cook, you know, and I'm like, oh, I don't come to your house and ask you to do your job when you're off work. I'm not about to do my job when I'm off work. So I would beat them to the punch and I'd be like, I'm gonna bring a board, you know, like I'll bring some finger foods, you know, before it was before charcuterie was so avant-garde. I'd be like, I'm gonna bring some snacks, I'll bring finger foods. And I would do like little fried mac and cheese bites. I would do like crazy wing flavors, right? And so that I kind of got known for that, right? And so I was like, I like entertaining and I love bringing boards to my friends' things. Or if you come over to my house just for a chat, you know, I might say we're going to have tea, but we're really going to have a board. And so that's how it became the book, you know, and like, how many ways can we flex a board? You know, what makes a board actually, you know? And to make it easy and family friendly and people want to make beautiful food, how do we do that? I'll show you how to do it with boards.
Great. So thank you so much. It's been so fun getting to know you. We're now going to move into the board building segment of the program tonight. So Elle will be happy to answer any questions that you might have as she's building the board. The board is for demonstration only, but if you are really interested in partaking in the board, then it's at your discretion. So we're just gonna move some furniture around and I will start.
All right. I'm gonna make a board right now. It's a very exciting experience. One of the things to consider, one of the first things you should consider when you're making a board is like, what's the occasion, right? Like, what are you making a board for? Today, when I was shopping, because I wanted to give you the freshest ingredients, I was thinking like, what kind of board do I want to make? And I knew I would talk a little bit about like my love for like local foods, right? And local farms and purveyors. So I tried to get local things. I'm using some of my favorite purveyors here, like Jasper Hill Farm. I love their cheese. They're just the greatest. I think there might be one cheese on here that is not local. But for the most part, they are, and if I couldn't get it local to Massachusetts, I aim for local to the United States, as opposed to French cheese or Spanish cheese, which are all delicious. And so today I'm just going to make for you, like, really it's not, I don't like to call a board basic, but it's a no fuss board. And I think the most important thing I want to show you is how to lay it out, right? I think that's most people's question. They always have great ingredients, like, where do I start? How do, what's the foundation for making a board? For me, I like to gather my ingredients like I have here, right? I like crunchy things. So I grab these cornichons, which you can get in a jar, obviously. I went to Whole Foods. They have these tangerine and red pepper olives, right? I was like, okay, that sounds good. I'm gonna definitely do that. I got some Marcona almonds. I got some caramelized pecans, right? Like salty sweets. These are the kind of, I'm thinking about the flavors I want to build, right? Like, I must have green, briny things. But I don't want to go too far off. Like, I don't want to get cheese stuffed olives if I'm kind of going salty sweet. So I got the tangerine and pepper. I always get a dried fruit. Sometimes it's I don't know, raisins, apricots. Today I went with tart cherries, kind of like, I was feeling a little homesick last week. If any of you are friends with me on social media, I was really homesick this week. So I got cherries, made me think about Michigan cherries. So I got that. I choose my meats. I didn't want to go too far off the grid. Like, when I'm with my old friends, y'all are my new friends. When I'm with my old friends, I make them try weird stuff, right? Like, I don't know, mortadellas with weird things in it. But I am not going to do that to you today. I want to keep you as new friends. So I got you some soppressata. What do we have here? Some caprese. We got some prosciutto, the classics. I also like to have a swoosh, right? And you'll see in the book, I do a swoosh. I like a spicy mustard, and then I like to have a jam. So I have a little bit of raspberry amaretto jam. This is also local from Terrapin Ridge Farms. And then I have some shallot confit with red wine, right? These are things that you should keep in your refrigerator at all times, because not only are they good on boards, but they're good on omelets, they're good on baked potatoes, French fries. Imagine some French fries with shallot confit with red wine. Okay, it's really, really good. When I'm doing a board, I'm always thinking about garnish. What's the easiest garnish you have? That time that you didn't use all of when you roasted your chicken. Some rosemary you maybe didn't use, when you made a gravy for your roast. Use any type of herbs that you have. Don't use the onions though. But any of your green, fresh herbs make great garnish on your board. And if you don't use, no one's probably going to eat it, so you can always bag it up and put it back in the refrigerator and repurpose it. These are all the cheeses that I brought. Now, one of the important things about my cheese selection is that I like to choose cheeses that have rind on it. I don't always, it's not all, right? Like, some I get without the rind, but I find that sometimes when people are picking up their cheese, they like a little handle. Like, sometimes the rind is just a good little handle, right? I like also to choose shapes, because I like to cut, triangles, squares. When you cut these into slices, I'll show you. It's a trick. I'll show you. So I definitely think about shapes when I'm getting cheese. I got y'all some Stilton blue cheese. Has anyone had Stilton? I see you shaking your head. I know you've had Stilton, a lot of Stilton fans. Why am I just now new to Stilton? This is like if Parmesan and blue cheese had a baby. A perfect baby. It's so good. So I bought that because you deserve Stilton perfect baby cheese. Crackers. Now, this is where you can go bananas, right? You get whatever crackers suit your fancy. I like to get some very traditional water crackers, right? For the purists. I like these raincoat. These are my favorite ones here. These are my top 3 crackers. I love raincoat crisp because they have fig and olives, right? And we're already kind of in that theme, right? We got shallot jam, we got a fig jam. We're kind of in that salty sweet world. So I thought that was appropriate. And I love these long crackers. I don't know. Maybe because I'm tall and I'm partial. I don't know, but I just love these on crackers, right? You can put them on, if you have a big board, they really give your board some body, right? But if you don't, you can break them in half and, people are still cool with that. So these are the things that I have to build the board today. Some other really, another really important thing to have when you're building your board. This is pretty much how I start, right? I have my board that I'm serving on. I have my knives, paring knife, chef knife. I have a cutting board here because I have to cut the cheeses. I have everything I need on a tray, so I don't have to run around looking for what I need. And then I gather my tools. These really cute things. Oh, that's great. Here we go. I heard a naysayer in the audience. So some of the things I buy, if I'm putting new things on the board, I like to make sure I label things. So I bought these cute little chalk boards from Target. I didn't have chalk, and that's fine. So I also have these cards with little stands. All of these things I got from like the dollar section in Target. You can just write on a piece of paper and put it on your board too. No one really cares, but they do like to know what they're eating. It's great for people who might have allergies. Maybe you have people who are vegan and you want to say, this is the vegan side of the board, this is not. It's important to let people know what they're eating. And then cheese knives. I have a pretty diverse collection of cheese knives. These are probably my favorites because the handles are colored. But getting yourself some cheese knives is always a good start. You look like a real pro if you have cheese knives. Whether you are or not, you look like one. We have some tongs. That's for you all. We have bowls. And that's kind of really all you need. Like it's already not stressful, right? Is anyone stressed? Is anyone feeling stressed? Okay, good. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some gloves. And I like to start with picking out a focal point of my board, right? That's number one for me. Like, what's my focal point? Because it helps me to build out the rest of the board. Where do you go after you put the first thing down? Now, one of the rules about cooking, I don't know if you all have heard this, but like, if you go, like, don't go too far because then you can't go back, right? It's kind of better to plan it out before you make a major move, kind of like life, right? Like, have a plan if you can. And it doesn't have to be something you sketch out on paper, although I have done that and do that from time to time. I look at my cheeses. Sometimes I use my round cheese. I will admit I'm a round cheese focal point person, right? Because this cheese tends to be the one that people have to like wipe for, like you have to take the knife. So it'll drag, right? And so I try to put it in a place where it kind of has its own little world, right? So you don't drag cheese all over the board. So I'm gonna start with this washed rind soft cheese. It's Willoughby. It's very sweet. So I'm gonna put it here. I'm not opening anything up. We're planning. So cheese is here. Another thing I like to consider when I'm building a board is that people coming from every vantage point, right, should have access to the same thing. So if you do something on the left, you can do it on the right. If you do it in the front, you can do it in the back. Because I don't want, you don't want people having to, play hand twister to get to things. You want everybody to have access. So I'm not going to split this cheese, but because I'm thinking of putting this cheese here, I think maybe I'll put a cheese there, right? So everyone will have access to a cheese. These two are the same. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll, cut some there and put that there. I want to have something bright in the middle. So I'll put that there. I'm thinking I'm going to put some jam on here. So this board fortunately has like this little divot right here, right? So this is where my mustard swoop will go. I'm going to put a sploosh of mustard right there. So I'll park that there. I don't have to use both jams. I think I might choose right now raspberry or shallot confit. Who's down for the raspberry? Yes. That just means I have to do both. Okay, if you insist. All right. So I'll do this. This will be my jars of sauce. My bowls of sauce. I have that there. Okay, and this is looking good. So I'm saying like I can already see like where crackers need to go. We have a lot of empty spaces here. So like crackers here. You can see that? Oh, you can see that. Crackers here, crackers here. So maybe some olives there. What else do we have? Cornichons here. And I would probably like scatter some cornichons all around, right? It's not too juicy. The olives don't have a lot of juice in it either, but olive juice on cheese is not always great. And so with my dry things, my almonds, my pecans, my cherries, you know, like these are the final things that you use to fill holes. Like I consider these things space fillers, right? And then we place the meat, right? Like we put some meats in between these cheeses, like so. I feel good about this. How do y'all feel about that? We have a plan? Yeah, I feel good about this. Okay. We'll put some Stilton on here. Once we start cutting these cheeses, they'll be a lot smaller. And we can add more. All right, let's go. Let's do it. One of the more interesting things about boards is that there's really, I mean, there are some rules, but there's kind of no rules. Does that make sense? Like there are some things you shouldn't do in terms of like putting things next to each other, right? You think about brining things, anything that's juicy, saucy, it should have its own container, but like, you know, really you can put on a board, you know, whatever you like. I like to let people know there was a huge conversation about this in social media land about how people are using charcuterie as an umbrella term for boards when charcuterie is a board in and of itself, right? And it is meat, right? So not every board is a charcuterie board, right? There are cheese boards, fruit boards, baked potato boards. You put anything on a board you want, but if you put a board down and it has all meat on it, that is a charcuterie board, just so you know. And oh, should we label these cheeses? Should we label as we go? This is Willoughby. All right, just so we know. What is this? This is a raw milk aged 60 days or more. Fancy. Okay. Having kitchen shears is also it's also really great. Any questions? I can answer questions that are not related to boards while I do this actually. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask. I'm pretty open book. I will tell you the truth.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you ever use a cheese slicer? You know, one that you slice instead of the
I do. If I have more firm cheeses, I do use the slicer. Everything I got today was pretty soft, so I didn't bother to bring it. But like if I have like anything that's kind of more like a Parmesan or, you know, something like that, more block style, definitely, without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right.
Do you have any crazy cruise ship stories?
I do, but I have been sworn to secrecy. No, I'm kidding. So what's really interesting is that one time ships will sail no matter the weather, right? Yeah, I hope you know that. And one time we were expecting a storm, and I had never experienced a ship storm before, but I had some colleagues that had, and they were like, you better tape everything down in your kitchen. And I was like, what does that even mean? So I'm like, oh, I'll just secure it behind the bars up on the shelves. No big deal. Honey, when I tell you that boat rocked and those pots and pans were everywhere. Like they meant literally tape it down, like literally. I mean, it was like, let me just show you the body motion. It was like this for hours, for hours. That was probably my last contract on the ship. I think like after that, I was like, I can't do this anymore. It was fun. I was already older than my peers because like I was out here experimenting, you know, with career moves and trying to figure it out. But after that, I was like, yeah, this is enough cruising for me. All right, I just had a feeling that these were a little too long, and I've decided to have them. I think that's the craziest thing that happened while I was on the ship. Yeah, that was the scariest by far. But I worked on a ship that cruised around the Hawaiian Islands, so I kind of had it made. It was like probably far nicer than any other cruise experience, you know. It was really nice. I learned a lot. All right. It's not one art. I say my rhymes also, especially perm rhymes. All right, there we go.
Can you freeze those? Can you freeze the rhymes?
Yeah, you can freeze them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, what was that? It's where we sleep on the cruise ship? In the lower level of the boat.
Specifically.
Oh yeah, I mean it does help with seasickness, but like all the staff are on the bottom 2 levels of the ship. It helps. We're also kind of in the middle, right? So that does prevent us from getting seasick. Like, so if you cruise and you feel like the seas are not great for you, try and ask for a room in the middle, right? The kitchens are also in the middle of the ship. The main, what we call the main galley, stretches from forward to aft, right? So the ship is going this way. Whatever the direction the ship is going in, we're kind of walking opposite direction. So like, it's kind of good for you, but in 10 years, it's not. In 10 years, you're like, you feel it in your body, you know? But yeah, cruise ship life was something else. I don't know. I'm stumped on how I'm gonna cut this cheese. That's the other, you're like, what do I do that looks creative? I'm always thinking about like sizes, you know, shapes.
I got distracted.
More.
I have a question about your book.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write it? And did you do the photography or did somebody else do that?
The photographer is none other than the extraordinary Stephen Kleiss, who is our in-house photographer at America's Test Kitchen. I did all the food styling except for 3 boards, probably because I had a cold. I don't want to be like, I had COVID. I may have, but 3 boards. And yeah, all the photography was done at America's Test Kitchen. Yeah, and it takes a year for a book from start to finish at America's Test Kitchen. I really consider myself extremely fortunate because if you work with an outside publisher, it can take you up to 3 to 5 years, you know, like between book deal and book completion, it can take 3 to 5 years. So at America's Test Kitchen, because we work with Penguin House to publish all of our cookbooks, any book that comes out of our kitchen gets done really quickly. I don't need like an agent or anything like that. It just happens. Like they decide they want a book, they make it, and it's done. So I think, yeah, from start to finish, it was almost a year to date. Yeah. It's intense though. Like when we did this book, we were shooting like 2 boards a day. Maybe there are 30 boards for consecutive weeks. I think maybe we took like regular holiday, you know, New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving, but we were shooting pretty consistently for weeks. And then our first shoot day did not go well. Like on the first shoot day, we shot the cover, like the book, the cover that you see right now. We did that. That was our very first day, first shot. The second board that we did that day was hideous. It was a baked potato board, and the baked potato board did make it in the book, but we had to reshoot that the week right before the book went to print because we were like, this is horrific. Like even as a food stylist, I was like, please don't put this in the world with my name on it. And we fixed it, and it turned out lovely. And that immediately they were like, this is going to be the cover. We know this one's going to be the cover, and I love that particular. And on the cover is a crudité, right? Another very specific type of board. It's a crudité. So yeah. All right. How am I doing with time? Am I doing with time? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, good. All right, so we're almost done with cheese this year.
We have another.
I have a
Oh.
question about food photography. I
Yes.
heard that a lot of times if you see a nice glossy picture in a cookbook,
Mhm.
they got it to look that way with hairspray. Is that not true?
Yes,
It is.
it is possible. It is highly likely, right? Yeah, or fingernail polish or lacquer or any other kind of spray you might find in a hardware store. It's true. That's a good question. And I will say none of the photos in this book have that. Everything in my book is edible. Everything that we made, we ate. We took home, we gave to our staff, we ate all of it. So much so that I don't know that I have yet fully returned to eating boards. But it's all edible. I didn't do anything. I have a personal philosophy about food waste. So I don't want to waste anything. I want everyone to be able to eat it. However, if I'm shooting for another client that is not America's Test Kitchen and they need me to do something like that, to spray it, I'll spray it. I'll do whatever I need to do to get the shot as long as it's within the client's parameters, I'll do whatever the client needs me to do. And then I'll just tell people, don't eat it, which is why you should, what, everybody? Ask before you eat it, because it might look good, but it might be hairspray. Moral of the story. Yeah, that was a great question. Sorry. More questions? Yes. Okay. Cheese cutting.
Two questions.
Yeah.
So what do you do with the rind? You said you make it into a broth.
Well, I'll put it in a broth. Sometimes if I'm making pasta, I'll put it in the pasta water for a little nuttier flavor. It's very common. If you go on YouTube and find rinds in broth, you'll see a million things. Like a lot of people do it. It's not. It may have originated in Italy. Maybe they started doing it like maybe brodo might include a farm rind. Maybe. Don't quote me. But there are lots. You'll see tons of it. It's kind of an old school. It's an old school restaurant hack.
So you also mentioned that you have a love for barbecue.
Yes.
Moonshine.
Yes.
Is that possibly your next book or next book?
No, that's it's not my wheelhouse. It's just of interest, right? Like I have a million food interests in a year's time. And it's not my book. I have friends whose lane that is, and they will do books and they will be wonderful. I will just eat them. Like if they have a TV show and there's food to eat, you might see me there. But that's not my wheelhouse. My next book, you heard it here, folks, will be about food as gifts. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. I can't say more than that. But it's kind of in the same theme, of entertaining, and I have dreams about what I would like for that to look like, because so many different cultures give food as gifts, and I would love to explore that. But that will involve a lot of recipe testing of new recipes, and sometimes HK likes to use to repurpose. And I'm like, we can do some of that, but I would like to see what other cultures do for food as gifts. That would be really interesting. Oh, the Stilton is tip is broken off. That means I gotta eat that. Darn. All right, I'm just gonna cut this in half because it's pretty tender. Look at that. Oh my God. It's cheese. I fell in love with this. I was eating this out of the packet with I made a galette with butternut squash, shallots, and apples, and then melted the Stilton cheese on top. Oh my God, it's so good. It was so good. Unbelievably delicious.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Do you repurpose your food sometimes?
Yes. It depends.
Meaning, let's say you have, 5 different leftovers Do you think of ways to combine them in some ways?
I do. My grandmother used to do one pot shots. That's what I call them. Like, what can I make a stew out of this? Or I'm also kind of like, I'll do like fake things, right? Like if I have egg roll wrappers, does it taste good in that? Or do I have pie dough? Can I make it into an empanada? Right? Like that's fake, right? Like I would never like call it an empanada, and I would never call it an egg roll because that's not what you actually put in it. But like, would it taste good that way? You know, like corned beef and cabbage and egg roll wrapper is a yes. You know? So yeah, I do. I don't waste food at all. I make something. And if all else fails, it goes in an omelet, right? A frittata. You can put anything in a frittata. All right, I think I have all the cheeses down I really need. I'm gonna go for the meat. Anybody wanna see salami roses made? Anybody into that? Yeah. I was being funny, but okay, I'll do it. I came prepared in case someone was interested. It's a shift change here.
Should just have a mic.
All right, so to make a salami rose, you need some sort of something in the salami family. Again, we have the oh, this is two in the same. I did this one. The soppressata, which is my favorite. I really love it. Any kind of like spicy salamis, I'm a sucker for it. All right. Here we go. And you need a wine glass, champagne flute, any of these things work. I'm going to use a little mason jar, a little bitty jar, just because I was scared to travel with my wine glasses because I thought I would break it, probably would. So it's really a game of layers, right? So you put one in here and you fold it over the top, like so, right? Super simple. And then if you have two different types of meat, I feel like it looks really interesting because it looks like petals, right? And so you just keep kind of doing that same thing, right? Another layer, overlapping. See the overlap, right? And you just keep doing that. And then you drink a sip of wine, and then you do another one, right? And you keep sipping your wine. And you know, it's not super time consuming, really. It comes together really fast. It's just that you have to do a lot of layers to make it actually look like a rose, right? The other thing is like if you have a glass with a smaller mouth, right, it makes the bud of the rose look a little tighter. And it gets there, you know, like I've done it with this, I've done it with wine glasses. The only thing I have tried that didn't work was a coffee mug, to be perfectly honest. That's the only thing I know for sure does not make a proper rose. So I'm just gonna keep layering. And you can put as many layers as you want. You don't need a lot. I would say maybe like 3, maybe 4 is probably plenty. Because it can get pretty big. So right, you have all your layers in like so. What is also very helpful is if you put it in the refrigerator like this, it'll stay in the shape longer, right? But then you just take that off like that, and you got a cute little rose, right? Cute, right? Ta-da! All right. So I'm gonna just put that there. We don't have to do another one, but we can, you know, maybe we'll look at our board and say we need another row, you know, but this is a great time to kind of put some prosciutto on here. I'm actually just recently back on the prosciutto. I went to Italy for what feels like maybe 10 days or something, and I had so much pizza, pasta, and prosciutto, like that was August. I'm just now able to eat it again. I had so much, no control. This one's a little thick too. Prosciutto breaking up is not uncommon, right? Like sometimes you get good slices, sometimes you get pieces. I don't mind the pieces because you don't have to commit, right? Like to a whole piece of it. You might just want a little piece. So when it breaks up like this, I just kind of take them and make them into like little clusters, right? You can put, this is actually like just enough for a cracker. I'm never mad when the prosciutto. I just put some pieces on here, kind of put them around the room, if you will. These are the conversations, the musings from my brain when I'm making a board. Now you know what's really going on up here. If you see me making a board, I'm thinking about all the weird things that manufacturers do that make our lives more difficult. Like wrapping cheeses 7 times. Like, it doesn't need as much plastic. Save the planet. It smells so, does it say salty and delicious? So at this point, I have made the full commitment to this board, which is, I've done it a lot faster with you than I do it in real life. Sometimes it takes me a long time to figure out where I want things to go. But I mean, we've done well, and it's actually looking really, really nice. I'm proud of it. And we'll keep building. At this point, I kind of like stop and like, I have to reevaluate. Like, do I have room for everything that I want to have room for? I'm feeling good about it. I feel like I'm going to put more meat here. I'm always thinking about sizes, right? Like, if I don't want to put little bitty crackers near long pieces of cheese, right? This cheese here, these cheeses might get longer crackers, you know. This cheese might get some small crackers. So this is the kind of things I'm thinking about, like what makes sense, you know, like what's a cohesive bite, you know, like, is that an exciting thought with a board? Probably not, but your friends will appreciate it, that they didn't have to go, you know, if I'm standing at a board, I know this sounds weird, but if I'm standing at a board and I'm like, which cracker goes with this cheese? Or, you know, like I have to kind of, I have Jenga brain, Jenga brain is good. I used to call it Tetris brain. Like, it has to go together. I'm also the person who has to have one bite of everything left on my plate. The last bite has to be some of everything. Don't judge me. That's how I do. All right, so I'm thinking about like, because I'm tired of these jars sitting here. We need the real situation in place, right? That makes it feel better for me.
You're gonna put the crackers separate. Like, I feel like I was going out.
Yeah, you can absolutely put the crackers separate. But the thing about boards, right, is like, you often forget that you can refill your board, right? Like, if you don't want to be bothered, that's fair, right? You want to make this board and move on with your life. I get that, you know. If that's how you feeling, then do it, you know, then do it that way. Put your crackers in a different thing. I did my very first 15-foot board, and I put the crackers in like tiered baskets that were shaped like Christmas trees. And people really love that. Like, the crackers were separate. People did love it. But I had to figure out like how to put enough crackers for 150 people with me, like make it make sense, right? So sometimes that's a challenge, you know, like, what's your space like? How many people are you having? You know, if you're having a lot of people, if there are more than 20 people, it could very well make sense to put your crackers somewhere else.
Is a board constantly living throughout the night? Like, is it placing things?
It could be. I mean, I don't replace things unless I'm like, I ran out of space and I didn't get to put this thing. But I mean, boards are usually kind of like a precursor to the meal, you know. So like, when it's gone, right? And things start to look bad after a certain time, you know. They do start to look bad, and you don't want that. You know, you want your board to look fresh at all times, right? All right, so we're putting long crackers near long cheeses because I insist. And so sometimes you know, you find yourself like shifting things over, moving things around, and you know, that's just how board construction goes, and it's okay. No rules broken, right? Trying to fan these crackers out because I want something cute to happen. All right, this is looking nice. I'm gonna put some more meats. What else do we say? We need our garnishes, which we're getting very, very close to. Different crackers. I'm leaving this space open for this cheese. All right.
We're just gonna add like some like time challenge to you.
All right, I got you. Okay, so I was told that I have 5 minutes to finish for it. So I'm gonna go on full Full speed ahead. I think the only other advice I would give you when shopping for stuff for your board is just to make sure your crackers aren't broken. You know how many times I've picked up boxes of busted up crackers? It's made me so sad. Oh man, my stomach is growling. It's the prosciutto gives me every time. I can still answer questions though. I can do this in 5 minutes and still answer questions. So if you have any more, please feel free. All right.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In order to get the cheese, do you have like toothpicks or something?
Well, today we're going to use the tongs, but you can absolutely put toothpicks out. That's very smart. Toothpicks are welcomed. I like to get super cute toothpicks. Oh, that's not the top of that. Yeah, that's never a bad idea, especially in the age of COVID. You know,
You get the sauce. How do people get their jams?
you can put little spoons. So I have like these little things. You know, sometimes I use a regular size spoon.
And you have like small plates on the side.
Mm-hmm. Napkins, cocktail napkins are always fine, right? All right, we got jam here. Am I down to 2 minutes, 3 minutes? Yeah. All right. I got 2 minutes. Okay. I got this. I do this. No fear, no pressure. All right. So this is where you start to fill with things, right? You have your olives. You have little spaces here. You know, you can do that. All right. Put a few more over here. That looks great. All right, and the cornichons. All right, we're getting down to the wire. I think I literally have like 1 minute left. Right?
It's added a level of food challenge.
What is food work without a food challenge, right? All right. I didn't forget. I got the. I'm on it. I'm on it. Everything is gonna get on the board before I'm done. Oh, this is it. The wet hand and the glove, right? All right. Okay.
I hope you all love the fact that you can see what I was doing, and it's thanks to Matt here for his grand idea of putting the camera there.
But I forgot to get a mic stand, so that's why we're standing here.
You're the mic stand. And I appreciate it so much. All right, we got that. Almonds here and there. Yeah. Right. Thank you. It's all about the little filler things. People are like, it's the meat and the cheese. No, it's the fillers. All right. The zhush. All right. Some garnish. Don't eat the thyme, guys. Just for loots. Then I put a little. Yeah, well, don't put the crackers on. If you can put everything else on, but don't put the crackers. Okay. And then you're good to go. Yeah. All right. Here we go. The classic, right? Before paper towel. All right. Mustard. Swoosh. Gadoosh. Right. And I'm gonna do this. Oh. All right. Our board. Our board is done. Now it's always the cleanup, that's the worst, but we did it. We have 3 1, 2, 4 cheeses, salami rolls, prosciutto, the variety crackers, briny things, garnish. We did it.
Looks amazing. Thank you so much, Elle, for joining us today and for demonstrating this beautiful board. Again, Brian is here if you are interested in purchasing a book, and Elle is happy to sign it. I want to thank you all for coming. Come up and meet Elle.
Yeah, come on over. I'm gonna clean up while we talk.